Today is my March eyeshadow project update and I'm super excited. I have some major progress in some of these shades as well as a rollout, so let's just get to it. So we'll start with my Project Level Up palette, and that is my Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. So last month I rolled this and my goal was to use each shade at least once, but I have surpassed that goal, so I'm really happy that I was able to make some progress on this. So I did use every single shade, and I'm happy to say that I used almost all of them more than once. So I will just go through the shades. I didn't write them down in order on my phone, I just wrote them as I was using them, but we can start in order. So Stone, this kind of like taupey, really like taupey shade, I used 3 times. I really liked this as all over the crease color, and this palette actually paired really well with my Pan That palette for the year, so that was just a really nice shade that the other palette was kind of lacking. Whisper is this really nice, like kind of a taupey shimmer shade, and I only used it once actually, though I do wish I used it a bit more. It's really pretty and I think it could have suited more looks. I just was having a lot of fun with these other shimmers, as well as trying to use my Pan That palette. Ella, I also only used once. It's really this like almost bronzy, deep, dark brown shimmer. It does create more of a smoky look, but I do wish that I had used that one more as well. Vague was my second most used shade, and that one I used 3 times, kind of tied with a few other shades, and it really is just this nice rosy shade. It's quite different from my NYX palette, so this one has like a rosy mauve shade, but this one not as pigmented. Another one leans more rosy, this one leans more mauve, but they paired really well together. I'm wearing them both today and I really enjoyed that shade, especially leaning into the spring colors. This was a really nice shade to have. Travertine I also only used once. Again, it's more of like this taupey, leaning more brown shimmer, and it's really pretty. I kind of have like hard pan on it from last year when I was using it, and it's okay. It's not my favorite in the palette, but it's a fine shade. Delilah I only used once, though I really enjoyed this one. It kind of has like that wet look, kind of like Mia does, and it really just creates such a beautiful glitter on the eyes. It leans a little darker than how I expected it, so again, I wasn't really reaching for it, but that one was just really pretty. Silhouette I actually used quite a few times. I believe it was 3 times, and this I used more along my lash line. And again, that kind of deep brown shade is really lacking in this NYX palette. Muse I used twice, and this one kind of has like a very soft formula. It is so pretty and just has such a beautiful bronze, but this kind of like gold reflect in it. It is so beautiful. This one was a bit harder to actually pair with these colors, I thought, so I really utilized the browns and bronzes in this palette. Fair was my most used shade, and that one I used 5 times, and that was really just all over the lid color. We'll see soon, but in this one I'm still not done with that all over shade color, though I did repress it recently because it was just way too difficult to pick up. I believe I repressed it yesterday and I used it once today, and it's already pretty much the bottom of the pan, so I should be done with that one soon. And then I do want to find a palette because I have multiple palettes where there's kind of that all over color, and I want to just pick the next one and focus my use on that. It probably will be this one, but we'll see when I get to that. Filigree only used it once. Again, it's one of those darker shimmers that really creates a beautiful smoky look, but I really wasn't going out at nighttime. I was doing my makeup for work and that was kind of it, so smoky looks was a little too much for what I was comfortable with wearing. Wit I wore 3 times, and I paired that with Vague a lot of those times, and I also paired it with this palette. Sheen became one of my favorites, and how many times did I use it? I actually used it only twice, but it also just creates such a beautiful wet look, and it just has the most beautiful scattered glitter, so I really enjoyed that. Tender is kind of this cool toned brown shade, though it's not too deep, and that one I used 2 times. Again, this one was more for deepening up the crease, as well as Mesh, which I also used 2 times, and these two pair really well together, as well as with my NYX palette. And then finally Mia, I only used this one twice. It's probably my favorite shade in this palette, as you can see by the very large dip in there, and it also creates the most wet look out of all of these, though I believe Sheen and Delilah also do that. Overall, I am very happy with the progress I was able to make with this palette. I mean, I'm pretty sure this was my most used palette last year, besides this NYX Pan That palette that I'm doing. So it's no surprise that I was able to complete this round. Because there were only a few where I had used them just once, I'm, again, pretty happy with this, and I will be rolling it out because I really just want to get more usage on all of my palettes, and I am hoping to have used all of them this year. Last year I felt like a lot of palettes were getting neglected, so that's kind of what inspired me to do this type of project. Before I do roll another palette, I want to give an update on my Pan That palette. So this is what it's looking like today, and I will include photos again from January and February and how it is looking now. Still no new pans. I have expanded this one just slightly, and some of the shades that I've been focusing on are getting a little like deeper. I definitely want to ramp up the progress on this because I feel like it's kind of been overshadowed by Project Level Up. So I am hoping I get like a smaller palette or even a 5-pan palette just so I can really focus on this one. I think the difficulty I've been having with this one is that this one really isn't deep enough for what I'm looking for. Neither of the brown mattes I've picked are really deep enough for my looks that I usually go for. And then the bronze pairs well with them, but the pink shimmer not so much. So it's been kind of difficult trying to find pairs for these, and it usually doesn't correspond with this palette that I was using, though these two did happen to work well together. So I don't remember off the top of my head how many times I had used this last time, so I'm going to say my total amount for the year of usage for each shade, and then I will include the numbers of where I was at last month. This light brown matte has only been used 5 times, and once again, just kind of disappointed with the usage on this. This one is quite sheer, so I need to find a way to build it up more or just colors that it works well with. This brown matte has the most usage, and I've used it a total of 16 times, so it is getting there, and I am starting to see a bigger dip in the pan, so I'm happy about that. That will probably be the first pan that I see this year, at least in this palette. This bronze shimmer I've used a total of 5 times. This one also kind of has some hard pan on there. I've scraped it off, but then it kind of came back, so I think I'm just gonna try and deal with it. And then this dark pink shimmer has only been used once, and I do think that that was from last month's update, so I really need to start using this more. I'm thinking of starting to using this like rosy mauve shade more because that will encourage me to use these shimmers, maybe even hit pan on this one, though that's not my target for this year. And yeah, I'm just a little conflicted on how I'm going to use these browns more because they actually don't really go well together. When I pair them together, it turns really warm toned, even though they look very cool toned in the palette. Not sure how I'm going to increase my usage, but it's only the March update, so we still have plenty of time. With that, it is time to roll for a new project to level up. I'm really hoping for a smaller palette or something like spring colors. I'm really hoping I don't get a warm tone palette. That's not really what I want to use right now, but of course if I get it I will. So let's just see. I have all my palettes here and I'm not going to do any repeats, so let's see what I get. And the palette I got was, okay, I got ColourPop the Child, so I will go grab that right now. Okay, so I grabbed that palette and it kind of meets all the criteria I was looking for. So it is a much smaller palette. This is just a 9-pan and it is a really cute palette. I love this one from like the color story aspect. So there definitely are some shades in here I actually haven't even used yet. And I believe it's mostly the shimmers. Yeah, looking at it, I think it's these 2 lightest shimmers, and I've definitely used this one. I've used all the mattes. Maybe this one, the Forest, maybe I haven't used that one yet, but I'm pretty happy with this. The greens are pretty cool toned, and then we do have these 3 warm tone shades here, but I think this might go really well with this palette because this looks a little too warm to pair with these greens, so I'm hoping that the browns in here will go really nicely together, or I can just go for a really warm look. But I think this will be really easy to reach my goals. With that, because it is such a small palette, I think I want to use each shade at least twice, though we'll see how that goes, especially with wanting to increase my usage with this shade, or with this palette. So having these two palettes together I think will be a great segue into spring. We have some nice light greens as well as a little dash of warm tones, and I'm just really excited to kick this off. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in next month's update. Bye!